I'm not gonna lie, one of the greatest surprises for following Melody to me is her agreeing to commit murder. I never expected that from her, and I wasn't expecting to see it now. I was only expecting her to honestly act out in the most peaceful way. Witness to murder, yes, but not be this active towards murdering somebody. It never felt like that to me, but I'm seeing surprises here. But to be honest, she was willing to join a whole mafia gang just to, in the end, find her goal. So maybe there is a part of her that we are not keeping in mind here, or at least that I'm not keeping in mind. But it's always a surprise. It came as a surprise to me that she agreed to the whole plan of committing murder. It might be some sort of manipulation in play, but we never know, and we don't know yet. But the worst part about this whole thing is that she is wrong. Her and Cacho are dead wrong. And that we should know as the audience. And that's the crazy thing about Hunter x Hunter, right? Characters can be wrong. In a regular story, characters can be wrong, but it's always in a two-dimensional way. There is somebody wrong and somebody right. But here it's like wrong in nuance. And that's what makes it so fucking good. Is that nuance that is in play, that is so real. The nuance of being wrong, but in a nuanced way. But anyway, they're about to commit murder. Melody is about to commit murder, and I cannot believe that. And she's wrong because they feel threatened by the amount of time they have to protect our girl Fugetsu. And if you don't understand, our girl Fugetsu is suffering from curses. Curses of unknown origins but devastating effects, but also to give her enough power to use all the portals she wants. But it seems weird, it seems unnatural, it seems dangerous. And in that context, I understand that she might feel that way, but going off that supposition is kind of crazy. But beyond those supposition, we, as the audience that has sat back, can do some backseating. We've had enough context or seen enough things to maybe make a couple of conjunctures, make a couple of theories, make a couple of guesses as to what is happening to our girl Fugetsu. And I want to get into that. You see, I made a couple of theories, but I might have had to delete all of it because I found out some more context. Let me start. When we just mentioned the ability being a curse or Fugetsu suffering from a curse, I think all our minds went to Camilla's gang and all of her soldiers that are around and able to commit curses, but they have to kill themselves. And that is the most important part. They have to kill themselves in front of or in proximity of the person they want to curse. And when you keep that in mind, you would understand that there is a whole lot less chances of them committing the offing in front of Fugetsu because she would remember it and she would be able to talk about it. Because if they don't do it in front of her, the ability is going to take a whole lot more time than normally. And because of that, something else comes into mind. It's Benjamin. When Benjamin assesses the ability, he realizes that she only has about 11 days to live till, well, kaput. When you think about that, you realize that this might not be that ability from Prince Camilla's gang. So we switch it up. We go and we look at the other side. We look at Benjamin himself and the soldier he had stationed around Prince Fugetsu because he had an ability that was very well able to kill her. But he lets us know himself that he failed that attempt because the prince teleported out of the range in time to save herself. But that would have made so much sense for the wound that Kacho found on the back of the prince, but it doesn't make sense as that ability doesn't seem to be a curse. So we delete that option out of the way. But then we get into uncharted territory where we have to argue about other aspects or other prospects, I should say, to this curse that Fugetsu is suffering from. And one of the other options was more of a recent one. Since we've learned about beyond Netero and his spawns, we know that there is a curse looming over the princes that might be falling down on them the moment one of those spawns die. We've seen a couple of Nen users die, And because of that, it might be one of those that are hitting Fugetsu. But since we don't have much information on how it works or what it is, any sort of information pretty much regarding that ability, I think we can sort of take it off the table, because even the timings of some of the deaths might not align with Fugetsu's curse. So we're pretty much out of option. But here was one of my theories because of how the curse was presented to us. It was in the form of how Fugetsu was feeling, how distraught she was, how sad she was, how cryful she was crying. And we understand that she was really distraught. She was having a mental breakdown. And I think that, or that made me thought that Fugetsu has cursed herself through Nen without knowing, since she just realized how sad her situation is, or she secretly realized that prince she loves so much has died in secret, and that this is only a representation from the Nen beast. Like, she might have secretly realized that Kacho is dead, but is sort of having this denial about it, and that it was a manifestation of that. I think that it is some sort of vow that Kacho made with herself or with her Nen without pretty much knowing the details, but understanding very well that she is sacrificing part of herself or part of her power, or at least part of her life force, so she can use the ability way more, so she can maybe be useful to Kacho or the whole Melody gang they have here. Yeah, so to make it more simple, I think that this is some sort of vow that Kacho arrived, or Kacho managed to construct through maybe the promise of protecting her sister, and by that same way she deducted her own life force through curses, sort of similar to Gon but slightly different. But I think that Kacho might be able to do something along those lines, because we've seen her actually think about the abilities in depth, and she was actually testing the abilities as much as she could, and she realized that there were some limits, like once per day and such and such. And I figured that mostly if she realized that there were ways that allowed her to use the ability more than once, it would be by trying to create vows, limitations, and so on and so forth, because those are what makes Nen so powerful. And her link with her own Nen beast made me think that was possible, because the use of the ability seems to be highly linked to her own decisions. So vows and limitations are not out of the question. And add to that, the other aspect I was thinking about would be the death of Kacho being some sort of trigger for Nen after death, which, as we all know, Nen after death makes Nen more powerful, makes the overall Nen ability more powerful. And so that's why I had to fall on this theory, because it made so much sense when you look at the details of the whole story of how Kacho died and maybe provided more Nen for the ability through Nen after death, and the fact that maybe Fugetsu figured out a way to create vows and limitations. I thought about it for a while. It made a bit of sense. It's more of a narrative of irony, but I had to cut it out because I went back and read some more. And amongst all the chapters and all the instances of beautifully low-key hints, I think he put down hints that we might have missed or associated with other things. And here I have to cut to this character. Do you know who this is? Of course you don't, because when you think about it, there's just too many people in play in the succession war. And this, to make it simple, is one of the guards that is protecting Fugetsu and Kacho, and was hired by their mother, of all people. So keep that in mind. Well, this guard here was having a conversation with a colleague of his about protection of the princess. Not much of a conversation, since we understand that mostly his colleague was talking and he kept silent, which is odd, but let's keep that in mind. I do have to mention another instance of this same guard being sus again while interacting, or less so interacting, but being in the presence of an end user, or much more in the presence of a fellow end user in the form of the first prince's guard, Mr. Ballhead over here, who clearly was taunting him with his own Nen ability. But we can see that this guard stays calm and has the same expression on him, at least a bit of a different expression, because we remember seeing him looking sad before. And this scene can simply slide right over our heads when we think about it, because honestly speaking, in this context, we are following this Prince Benjamin Guard's monologue, his long ass monologue. We might forget a bit about who this person next to him is, but it makes a tad bit more sense because on the other scene, he was talking about scheduling and how to schedule so that they can be sure to protect the prince. And now he is working next to the enemy, but he is not showing that he knows none. But that doesn't mean he doesn't. That's the thing. We learn that a couple of characters, or at least a couple of private bodyguards, actually know none because of other factors. There are Nen users amongst crowd, and that secret is popping out. And because of that, it makes so much more sense to think that we might be seeing a curse taking place because this character has cursed the prince. Well, anyway, that's the theory, that's the speculation, and I would argue that this is probably what is causing the death of the prince really slowly. This character that we might have all forgot about, but who we have received a couple of hints about, and he's probably the cause of the whole curse. Well, anyway, well, thank you. Hope you had a good time. Let me know what you think down there so we might have a big discussion about it, and hope to see you again. Bye bye.